bored of the corporate life? Ever wanted to control an army of slaves? Just can't be bothered with the faff of all the social politics and judging stares? Well, now you can from the comfort of your own home by playing Imperial Settlers and choosing the Egyptians.
History is a funny word. Alright, not as funny as kippers or knickers, but it is quite funny. And a lot of people think that history is boring, but it's not. It's full of slavery and ninjas, and generally people being kind of to each other. Imperial Settlers is a game where you settle imperially. And by that, I mean that you move through the game. It's a nice, happy, light Euro game in which you are kind of generally self-serving and thieve from people, and you try and build up your empire. And if that means that someone else's empire gets decimated in the process, c'est la vie. At the beginning of the game, you'll choose which faction you want to play, and there are 4 to choose from. There's Romans, Japanese, Egyptians, and barbarians, and they will really determine how you will play the game. Each of them has their own unique faction deck, which you will draw cards from, and they will help you gain victory points as you go through. There are also these common cards that anyone can play and kind of tie the whole thing together. You'll notice up here that there is a cost to build these. So, for example, this old forest requires you to pay 2 wood resources, because it makes a lot of sense that to build a forest you need wood. You get these resources during production that starts at the beginning of each round. And when you play the cards, it's very easy. There are 3 different types of cards. There's production, feature, and action. And it's very easy to know where they go because of the unique setup of the game. But more about that later. Imperial Settlers is a build your own engine game, which means that the more you do, the more you can do. It's a bit like falling down the stairs. You know, at first you're just hitting the steps, but then you kind of catch every book and shoe, another bit of detritus on each step on the way down. Maybe I'm not explaining this so well. As we mentioned, there are 3 different types of cards. There's production, feature, and action. And production cards, unsurprisingly, produce things. So the stone cutter will produce stone at the beginning of each round, and Mars baths will produce a pink little hot sweaty meeple. Features kind of change the game up a little bit and allow you to do something a bit different. So the gardens say that each time you build a red building, you gain 2 victory points. And you will gain 2 victory points for building this red building. But if you then build another red building, you will gain 2 victory points again, as well as doing the ability for the baker. Action cards allow you to do different actions from the kind of bog standard making a deal, which is a bit like production, or raising, which is kind of kicking someone else's building down, or playing a card. Every person can spend 2 meeples to gain a different resource, but with action cards it will change it again and allow you to spend different resources to gain the resources that you really want. There's a lot of really good things about this game, and the rulebook is one of those things. It's so well designed and laid out, it's just a joy to read. And even if you can't be bothered to read it, because, you know, reading is so last year, you can always look at the videos online instead, and they are great. And we were worried a little bit that some people might find this game too simple. You know, some people like complex games, more meaty games that they can really sink their teeth into. But the simplicity of it means that it's easy to explain to new players, people that haven't played it before. And people that have played it enjoy it just as much. We've played it with 2 players. And we found that to be perfect. The game is fast and snappy and exciting. And something I really like about it as well is that there's no big surprises at the end. about who's going to win or about how many victory points you've got, because some of them are tracked on this track here during the game, and the only other way really to get them is by the cards, the buildings that you've made throughout the game. So there's not loads of different things to keep track of, and you're not thinking, oh god, you know, you're not thinking, I'm doing really well here, you know, I think I'm onto a winner, and then suddenly at the end of the game there's something you had never even thought about that other players obviously have, and suddenly they've won and you are left eating dirt. At times the game can feel a little bit solo or solitary in that it really doesn't matter most of the time what the other players are doing. It's not going to affect your turn a great deal. But there are ways to interact and to sort of change this up a bit. The common cards also have this raise symbol in the corner, and you'll send your meeples in and they smash down the other player's building and you get a reward for doing so. For example, this confectioner here, because they are now absolutely terrified of you because you have trashed all their hard work, they give you money. And they also give you, what I can only imagine from a confectioner, are toffee apples. So no bonfire party for these guys this year. Also, the cards will have abilities such as stealing resources from another player, or even preventing them from doing a certain action. But this is determined really by the faction you are playing, so this helps to make the game feel a lot more thematic. So, for example, if you are playing the Egyptians, you will be obsessed with slaves and kind of trying to turn the game around to benefit you. And of course, there are the Japanese who have ninjas. We felt the game was maybe slightly anachronistic. I mean, does it teach us about real history? Were the Japanese ninjaing at the same time that the barbarians were barbarianing? We just don't know. So maybe don't throw out the history books quite yet. We also thought the theme, we wondered if it added something to the game. I mean, would it matter if rather than playing Japanese and Romans and barbarians and Egyptians, you were playing like elves and wizards and goblins and snowmen? Probably not. But actually we thought that that really didn't matter because the game is really fun and it's really well thought out. So although the Roman faction cards might not give you this kind of out and out centurion feast, it does add spice that the game would be a lot worse off without. However, there are a couple of small points with the game that are not really even niggles, more like kind of nigglettes. Like you are at the mercy of the card draws, so you might find yourself with a hand of cards that you really just don't know what to do with, or that you just can't play because you haven't got the right resources, and they feel like they will force you to do something with your turn that you hadn't planned for, and it's not really a very good feeling. And because you're thinking about what you're going to do next and trying to replan what your next moves are going to be, the other players are kind of sitting there thinking, come on, you know, just steal my resources already, or do whatever it is you're going to do because I want to take my turn. So it does slow the game down as well. And sometimes you will start off with a bad hand as well, and when you start off with a bad hand you feel like that's going to carry on through the game and you're not really going to have a great game overall. One question people have asked themselves for centuries is, what is art? Is classical music art? Is graffiti art? Is darts really a sport? We just don't know. These are the questions that have plagued us. One thing that's not in question though is how well the artwork is done in Imperial Settlers. We just think it's great. Actually, we did wonder, was it a bit too friendly and a bit too cutesy? Especially as its spiritual prequel was 51st State, which is a lot darker in overtone. But we thought actually that no, it's not, because as great as it is to have these friendly looking centurions on the backs of the cards, would anyone really want to see a Roman being torn apart by a lion, or, you know, kamikaze pilots flying into things with the Japanese? We don't really think so, because, you know, this game advertises itself as 10+, so I don't think that would probably go down that well. Talking of the cards, look how detailed it is, how lovely it's done. Every time you look at a card you will see something different in it. And look how happy this guy is here with his shovel and his dog, strolling down the road whistling hi-ho, ready for his workers to build him admin blocks and bakeries and all kinds of things like that. And the beads. We can't go without talking about these lovely beads. They are just so beautiful and nice. And they do teach us a little something about history as well. Like in ancient times, apples were the size of men. And you thought genetic engineering was a new thing. Imperial Settlers might not make you feel like you really control a Roman legion or that you've really built a pyramid in the middle of Egypt. But what it does do is gives you a fantastic evening's game. It's just, you're going to have a good time. It's fun and it looks good and it feels nice. And not just once either. I've played it a few times and every time I've really enjoyed myself. Unfortunately, Efka can't be here today to help me make a decision on whether to buy, play it or stay away, but I've brought in a friend. What do you think, little friend?
I think you should buy the game.
What kind of accent was that, little friend?
Clearly one Elaine can't do very well.
Now, I think he's a little bit biased, but I agree with him. I think you should buy the game. And if you like this video, if you like our videos, don't forget to let us know, hit the like button and comment if you want to as well, and don't forget as well to subscribe.